the souls that happen to have bodies, not bodies that may have a soul or have a soul, or it's like we're so much more used to the body, like the weakness. I'm so tired. I'm chalishing. I haven't eaten, but we have to try to nourish the neshama as well because it needs nourishment. Uh, yeah, so good. Ladies, we're going to get started. Obviously, we're doing this in merit for a speedy, completely restored to health and strength for Perle Basar Esther. And may we just clarify, and we're all done with Gullus. We've had all sorts of fun challenges. And may Hashem just truly, do his part to end Gullus. We're trying our part. So I'm like, Hashem, I think it's like time for you to just step in and say game over. I'm going to start with tzedakah, complete refuah shalema, strength and health, and Besuras Teves for all. Okay. So last class, I feel like we did a really, really big recap. And this class, we're not going to spend time on the recap because then we'll not finish. And as much as I would love to be teaching Erev Pesach, I probably will be teaching Erev Pesach, but college students. So let's move along and kind of look at where we were at last week. 2 weeks ago, because last week I told my husband everything was frozen last week, literally, right? All the programming, all the classes, all the planning for Purim. It was just, we were frozen. But Baruch Hashem, just like it comes, it went. So we talked last week about understanding the analogy of the neshama and the candle and the wick and the fuel, and the power of doing a mitzvah, power of really, really the power of a mitzvah, and the power of understanding that Kedusha is when we're fully connected to the Eibishter, to Hashem, to our potential, to why we're here in this world. And Klipa is really a disconnect. And it's really kind of, it's getting sustenance from the other side. And so we're really, there is that disconnect. And when we're doing a mitzvah, we kind of started with, or was our end point, we really become one with Hashem, his Ratzon, and why we're in this world. So it's a really powerful thing. And we were discussing when we're not motivated or when we're struggling, what do? Right? So really we said that the motto, just do it, right? Just roll up your sleeves and do the mitzvahs, even if it's not simple. And ultimately, because a mitzvah unites Hashem, his purpose, this world, and ultimately, why are we here? What is this world about? Creating a dwelling place for Hashem. Hashem desired a space in this world, in a concealed world, where he can feel comfortable. And we talked a little bit about how we make guests feel comfortable in our house, right? How we make others feel comfortable in our house. And what does it mean to make someone feel comfortable, let alone lahavdil Hashem? And we talked about what it means to make someone feel at home. And we said, if I asked you adjectives to describe home, warm, safe, comfortable, your mom always knows the things that you like. I know when I go up to Muncie, my mother remembers that I like this Danish from this place. It's home. Or, even if you think of food, comfort food or homey food that makes you feel at home. And ultimately, this knowing that we're making Hashem feel at home in this world where Hashem is intentionally concealed should really give us a level of deep satisfaction. Because the other layer is that mitzvahs really transform the whole nature of the universe, of the world. The world, b'teva, okay? Obviously, we know Hashem created Teva and Hashem created the world, but b'teva, Hashem designed the system of this world where Kedusha is concealed, where godliness is concealed. And so when we elevate physical material stuff, when I use this phone to check up on someone who's not doing well, or to call to get a minyan, or to respond to someone who wants to help. We just had this incident with this Mace Mitzvah last week, which randomly fell into our laps. We all know not randomly, right? But Hashem sent our way. This elevates this thing, which we all know can also not be elevated. So we have this beauty, this gift to understand that really when we do a mitzvah, when we use the world and the way it's meant to be, we're transforming the nature of this world from a physical space to a spiritual space. Now, ultimately, we don't see Like, okay, we're going to do this, and then the prize is Mashiach, or the prize is Olam Haba, or the prize. It's not about that. It's about we're actively transforming this physical space, my dining room, my living room. This dining room has become a space to teach Torah. That elevates it. The beams, the walls, the roof, the glass. It's permeated with Kedusha. Of course, it could be used for other things, but that's how we see what our power, the power that we have. And knowing that we have such a tremendous kayach should really fill us with a sense of like, wow, little old me can make Hashem feel comfortable. Little old me and my own little, with my issues, with my bad habits, with my baggage, I can make a difference to Hashem. And I think it really can. I feel like even if we can infuse that idea, sorry, my laptop is making crazy. If we can infuse that idea amongst our children, that they can understand that every action can make a difference and they can make Hashem feel comfortable, it's very empowering. Like, I'm not just this random thing floating, like I said, carbon footprint. It's me. I have a neshama and I'm here for a reason, and everything I engage in can make a difference. And then as the Alter goes further along, kind of down into this concept in a deeper capacity or a deeper way, the Alter is going to really, really talk to why and how, right? How is it that my actions make such a difference and transform this galus? We know the only difference between galus, Gael to Geula, right? It's who we are, our actions, what we do. So the Alter kind of goes on to describe the three categories of how we create transformation and how we can elevate a cow. How can a dog be elevated, right? We're not supposed to eat dogs. We generally don't have dogs as pets. Obviously, if there's reasons, it's not, it's not like having a pig as a pet, which unless you're on a farm, we're going to go down a whole different rabbit hole over there. But point being that, yes, there are dogs that are therapy dogs that bring comfort to people, that help people with anxiety. That's tremendous. Or someone who feels, needs extra boost of safety. So every single thing has the ability to be transformed. And it's you and I who take little old Betsy the cow and elevate her essence and her potential in this world. And as I always like to say, you see this apple? You're giving the apple a gift when you make a bracha and take a bite. Like, wow, that's pretty incredible. Because what we do is we draw down the Kedusha, the light of the Eivishter, into this physical space. And that's a radical shift the way Chabad Lubavitch and Chassidus saw the physical world. In essence, I've been on panels for different religious, they have a rabbi, a monk, a this, or that. And I've once or twice had to step in for my husband. And the way I'm not an expert in other religions, but I could talk a little bit about Yiddishkeit's perspective, right? And without a doubt, when we finish discussing, let's say, Yiddishkeit's perspective on intimacy, okay, or anything that will come up on materialism, people are like, whoa, that is so novel. You mean money isn't good or bad? Intimacy isn't good or bad? No, we are active players in this transformation. And this is such a unique approach that Chassidus gives us. Because really, if you could see so much in the Rebbe's Messias, how the Rebbe utilized technology, which we'll talk about shortly, completely to bring Kedusha into the world. Right now we're on Zoom. In other groups from Jews, there was a big debate. No schools, Corona, shut down. Can we use Zoom? Can we not use Zoom? What about the telephone? Okay, well, if we have kids on the telephone learning for 4 or 5 months, 6 months, how connected will they be? As Lubavitchers with Chabad Chassidus, we were way ahead of the curve. We already knew, of course, Zoom could be used. The whole reason Zoom exists is for Kedusha, right? We know this. Why else would the Eibusher create Zoom? If not to have Yidden learning Torah. So we have to realize that this is a unique lens or perspective that we have that Chassidus really, really gives us. And it also is not just the materialism of the objects. It's also our energy. You and I. So think when you're doing something that's good. Right now, how much energy between now and Purim is going to be invested by Jewish women around the world, physical energy, to prepare the home for Purim, for Simchas Yantif, the food, the shopping, the menus. Forget the brain space. We're not even going to go there, right? Just the physical sheer kayach that's going to be needed for the hamantashen, to the costumes, to the packing shalach manis. Okay, hopefully we're all past crazy themes and everyone could just give a hamantashen apple and a bottle of wine and say good yantif. But I always joke, I say, thank Hashem that I live in College Station. Okay, so there's no mikvah, there's no chinuch, there's some stuff that we got to work on and change. But you know what? I don't have no competition for shalach manis. We keep it the mitzvah, and it's really nice for me. But the truth is, if you are sitting and making beautiful things for shalach manis, I'm not belittling anyone who is making beautiful cookies and themes and zachen. All the kaichas and creativity should be in kedusha. Like, go for it. But look how much energy we're using, readying the house, and then we have not just Purim. We go Purim going into Shabbos. So think of all the energy being utilized, being like exerted and used this week alone. It's mind-boggling. All of that is kedusha. Obviously, with the right mindset, intentionality. Hopefully, we'll talk more about that shortly. But the Alter goes on to say, it's not just that I'm using my energy for positivity and actually transforming physical energy. Physical energy could be used for anger and rage, right? God forbid, abuse. Physical energy could be used to make little beautiful packages and prepare the house and do the laundry and everything else that may fall on our plates. So now we have the object itself, good old Betsy the cow. We have our own physical energy. And then there's yet a third category. All the resources that we utilize to do the mitzvah, to bring kedusha into the world. Meaning, there's no way I could have, let's say, gone food shopping today, okay, without a protein bar and a quick shake. The kale, the peanuts, whatever it was. I was on the road and I didn't have food, and I quickly, thank God, Walmart has kosher protein bar and a kosher vegetable shake. I was really happy. But think of that. I needed the kayak to do the shopping. The shopping is for the food, to feed beautiful people so they could have some chas yantif. So yes, the food, the drinks, the research, the gas that I use to get to Walmart to do the shopping. You understand where we're going with this, right? All of this can be elevated, even the energy I need. So this is tremendous. I would say to students, think to yourself, if you are moving to Mars tomorrow, okay, you're going to establish the first Chabad house there, okay, even though I think the Mars rover officially, according to all the memes, already found the Chabad house there, right? But let's say all the things that you would need to live life as a Jew on Mars, air, water, oxygen, soil, energy, fuel, vegetation, animals, Torah scrolls, animals, all of those things are elevated. The energy we use, the objects we use, and the resources we need in order to do so, all elevated, all revealing the essence of the Kedusha in those items and giving us the chance to transform the energy. And I think it's so interesting because really this approach is so unique. And Alter even says all the food and drink that we eat can be elevated when used to do a mitzvah. So think today, all the mitzvahs you did, your breakfast, yes, of course, say a bracha, yes, of course, bracha acharina, but that good old scrambled eggs or a little thing of oatmeal, or maybe you grabbed a shake on the way or whatever it was, or a bowl of Cheerios, whatever it was, elevated. And basically, because mitzvahs transform us, our full essence, our bodies to Kedusha, and transform the world. And as we continue to do so, we'll reveal Mashiach. Because the whole essence of the era of Mashiach is when the whole world is God conscious, is aware, is revealed. Godliness will be revealed. Well, we're doing it daily. And I think, it's so interesting. I think often for women, and maybe even specifically, I'll speak for myself. When I was a young mom, you don't always have time to daven, and you're not always having time to do Hashanah Sener, Hashanah Rabbah because the to-do list. And sometimes I'm sitting in shul, even as a young mom, even I'm still sitting in shul in Kippur, it's a holy state of the year, and I'm remembering that the food on the, it's Rosh Hashanah, and I'm remembering the food, the soup, the feeding the students. It doesn't feel so holy. It doesn't. You see the men in the kittel, the men davening, and we're like a baby in one hand, and maybe not even a baby in one hand. We're thinking about the meal, we're thinking about the shopping list, we're thinking about the person, the neighbor. Oh, that person in shul needs a soda, and we feel often unspiritual in the day-to-day grind. And here it's totally no. Every single thing you do can be done with kedusha, with holiness.
I don't know how to do it because.
Hold on one second. Okay, here we go. If anyone wants to pipe in, feel free. But I have a feeling that child did not want to share. Just oh, hello, cutie. You want to learn also. And I think, all of that is continues to transform the world. And you know what? Like I said, I mentioned earlier, this was so the Rebbe's shita. The way the Rebbe approached, emergent technologies. Even in 1950s, there was already a radio show of Chassidus. A radio show in the 50s using radio wave technology. Rabbi J.J. Hecht had a show to share Chassidus, to share Torah on the radio. And there's so much. I know a few weeks ago, Jem's video, the weekly 70 years documentary, which huge advocate for. If you have not been watching it, it's not too late. They're done so incredibly well. Really kind of told the story of how, let's say, Jem came into being, or technology has evolved. I know Hanukkah, I think there was a special feature about it, and later on Jem. And I think that, even in the 60s, WEVD had Tanya classes, broadcasting, where the rest of the world was like, the rest of the frum world was like, shut down, close down, stay in your bubble, stay in our enclave. And yet as Chassidim, that wasn't the Rebbe's approach. As Chassidim, the Rebbe's approach was, no, transforming the world with Kedusha means the entire world. Okay, the world except technology. No, technology exists for a reason, right? And we know in the 70s, and I'm not sure, I know maybe in Houston, my mother-in-law shared with me, and in Houston in the 70s, they already knew how to do the hookups with the rallies, to listen to the Farbrengens, and, call in. Happens to be, think of it, that a bunch of, Hasidim in Brooklyn were the edge of technology. That's wild. In the 70s and in the 80s, I remember firsthand the first Hanukkah Live, where we were seeing France and Russia and Australia. I was a young kid, but it left such an impression. The connectivity of the world got smaller. We saw each other. And now we know I'm sitting at College Station. You ladies are sitting, in Houston, and we're learning Torah together. So the Rebbe's vision, it goes based on where the start. Alter Rebbe telling us, explaining to us how Chassidus, every single thing in this world has the potential for Kedusha. And if you look even further, it's so funny because the internet, before it was the internet as you and I know it, it was called the FidoNet. And Rabbi Kazin, alav shalom, was the one who actually got permission to do so, to put Chabad on this, pre-internet internet. And we know Chabad.org, my goodness, right? Chabad.org in the 90s. I mean, it's the most trafficked Jewish website. Sharing what? Torah, Chassidus. Every single thing can be used for Kedusha. And this is almost like so prophetic for the times of Mashiach, where every Mala Aretz De'as Hashem, the whole world will know Hashem. And it's incredible to see that Farbrengens were being streamed on cable TV 6 times a year. That's wild. When the world couldn't figure out the frum world for sure couldn't figure out what to do with cable TV, except shun it and block it and hide it. And yet our Rebbe said, no, Torah, it exists. It's a part. Everything that exists in this world is nothing that's, that didn't come doesn't exist for no reason. we can use cable TV to draw godliness, to help you to do mitzvahs. It's interesting because I think a few weeks ago there was an interview. I think it went around on, I don't want, it may have been in the Gem one or it's on the Gem WhatsApp, where this young, news anchor from CBS was the one who got to cover like the first broadcast live for Bringing. He was a young Jew, and it left a tremendous impression on him, right? So I think that we are so blessed to know this deeply and intrinsically, where I think we can, I think for us as women, it's a reminder to us that the technology we can bring into our house, you know, are we making sure it's Kedusha? Because, I don't want to tell tales, but children know how to get past every filter and every whatever. Like for us, I don't know, this is not where we're going here, but I'll mention briefly for us, our router has certain things blocked. I remember a fellow shlucha sent me an article that you thought I'd find 2 or 3 sentences fascinating from a non-Jewish women's magazine called Cosmopolitan Magazine. And the filter in my house, in Chabad house, not even for me, from the router, wouldn't let me open it because it was not. And I remember I had to leave and go out to open the thing. The article cut and pasted 2 sentences, paragraphs that she thought she knew would, whatever, enhance my dating workshop. It was an interesting take. My point is that we have to be guardians that allow that the Kedusha is what our internet, phones, everything could be used for. And no one's going to do that but us, right? Like that's our job. But we have to remember the potential of the materialism, that it has so much infinite potential for Kedusha. What I want to say is, and it's a little bit moving forward, is understanding that both the objects, right, and the resources and the energy all can be elevated. Think to yourself, if I needed to do this mitzvah, what's my action? What do I need? And what support things do I need to do that mitzvah? So right now, coming up to Purim, I need to, let's say, hear Megillah, right? So I need to spend time to figure out the times, the location, walking to it, eating before it, not on the fast, whatever. I'm saying there's so much. We need the cloth from the animal. We need the cipher with the ink. We need the Balkaira who flew in on a plane. Like, do we think of the gasoline on the plane being elevated for Kedusha? Can be. That's the ripple effect of Kedusha, which is why the Alter Rebbe goes on to say it is so important that we just do the mitzvah. We just do it, because so many things can be elevated, and that helps us allow the world to fulfill its potential. And ultimately, every action does count. And I think we could relate to that. I think we could relate to the fact, think of in the relationships we're in. It's not always the big giant gestures of an anniversary or a birthday that make a difference. Yeah, they're nice. It's not a good idea to forget those big moments. But guess what? It's that little thing of walking out and seeing that your spouse left your vitamins on the counter or the coffee for you, or you're in the supermarket and you see an item that someone will appreciate in your home. It's the little actions that build that relationship. And the same thing with the Eibishter. So while we think, well, there's no way I can get there, there's no way I could do this, it's like the Yetzer Hara creeps in. It's like, oh, you davening? You don't have time. You're so busy. Okay, but I have time for my brachas and Shema. And I have time for, like I could grab a quick mincha. Like when we think it's all or nothing, Kedusha is everything that we can do. Every moment we can. And in Rambam, it describes that at every given moment, Rambam describes the analogy of the world on a scale. That at any given moment, we should see that our own actions can tip the scale either way. The visual is very, very powerful in a real way, because every action does make a difference. And it's not just every action, but it's also where I find myself. Because I think at different stages, as women specifically, we are pulled in so many directions. So many directions. We mean so much to so many people. I may be a mother-in-law and a bubby and a daughter and a sister and a friend and a mentor. I may be pulled. I mean, I'm not a bubby, right? So it's easy for me to say, but I may be pulled in so many different directions, and there's so many hats I wear for so many people. I mean so much, and yet what? Yet what? We're pulled in so many different directions. There's so many different social expectations, right? Society has so much expects of us. You know, what's your job? What, you know, where are you holding? You know, your mother, are your, you know, where are your kids? What's like, there's so many, our relationships demand a lot of us. We wear so many different hats, and there's always demands as women of us. And I feel that so many women I speak to and I talk and there's so many times for myself where you feel like you're just not measuring up enough in any of those areas because there's so much demand. But I think we have to remember that the things that come onto our plate that Hashem sends our way, he's saying, this is yours to elevate. This is yours to bring the Kedusha to. This is yours to reveal the godliness within it. And I think there's external demands. I think there's the internal demands that we have, our emotional roller coasters. Biologically, as women, we're complicated, right? And yet, every single one of these layers can be elevated. And I think there's a level, it's really a level of letting go. And I remember when I was expecting the triplets, there were times, you know, I wasn't officially put on bed rest, but if anyone saw me then, I really couldn't move. There was a lot of extra baggage, Baruch Hashem, right? It was a lot. And I'm not the tallest person with the broadest, you know, the largest torso. And physically, I couldn't move. And I remember people saying, oh, great, you're being put on bed rest. I can enjoy the vacation. And I wasn't put on bed rest, but I put myself on bed rest. I couldn't move. And I remember like, no, like I'm sitting here and anyone knows me. All I want to do is do. All I want to do is accomplish and move. I like to use my energy for the good things. And for me, the avodah of just being was so intense. Embracing that this is exactly where Hashem put me. It's exactly where he wants me. This is exactly the time, space that I'm in. And I remember it was one phone call with a fellow shlucha who also had triplets, who was also loved, you know, was a very active shlucha. And I remember her saying to me something. She said, what you're doing now, no one else can do for you. You can't delegate this job. And I remember my entire essence, physically, emotionally, spiritually, probably many other E's, was wrapped up in bringing these three neshamas into the world. Like that was my tafkid at that moment. So I think for us as women to just embrace this idea that the materialism I have is mine to elevate. Not what my friend has, not the car that someone else is driving, not the shaitel that I'm dreaming and thinking I should one day have. The shaitel I'm wearing now is mine. That's what I'm meant. This here, I don't know where it's from, India, I have no idea. This is the one I'm supposed to be elevating, not the one that it didn't get yet, right? Exactly. You know, whatever it is. And I think that it really, this concept, we know it in a it's a fundamental chassidus. But can I use it? Can I pull this tool out in my life when I feel like I'm pulled everywhere? You know what? Last week, my avodah was not to prepare for Purim. You know how I know? Hashem didn't let it happen. I got a big fat reminder. You know, I'm scared to say this to Estonians. We had electricity. Ours from Monday night till Thursday morning was shut over 100 times. Just on for 15 minutes, off for 50. On for, and you didn't know when, what, where. It was pretty. It was like the lights went on. I was like, quick, run and charge your phone, run and take a shower, run. It was meshuggah. But Baruch Hashem, my avodah, for me, I felt last week, was staying calm, making it into a fun, memorable experience for the children, you know, making sure the fireplace, just letting go of whatever normalcy is. We weren't in a normal situation, so why should I pretend it's normal? So for me, that was last week's avodah. That was clearly not giving the share. It was clearly not, I don't know, anything else I needed to do, right? It was checking in on people who were struggling. It was being the support for others, staying centered. Now I have to tell you, interestingly enough, Friday morning when I woke up, I was just so on edge. I was just on edge. I had like 2 hours into the day. I said, yes, I don't know why I'm so on edge. And it suddenly dawned on me like there was intense pressure that I was hauling through last week. And I think the subconscious like relief, we had electricity. I was able to make, the students at least some Shabbat to go, not a full meal because we didn't have eggs, we didn't have nothing. Our supermarkets were ransacked. I saw my mother-in-law the pictures, like they were like cleaned out. I think the only thing left was lemons, limes, and some tofu. Like it was pretty wild. And so I couldn't make a full Shabbos, but I knew I could make a big pot of soup and I can make challah. Actually, I had challah in the freezer. And I had, I made brownies that I was able to make. But the release of the tension was like, it altered my mood. And I had to like check in with myself. Okay, why? Like you have lights, everyone survived this week. Baruch Hashem, we babysat the pipes. None of them burst, like unscathed. There are people in way worse situations, as we know. I know in Houston, anyone I was in touch with, I think you guys got hit a lot harder. Interestingly enough, I think weather-wise, we got intense weather from Sunday morning until till Friday morning. Everything was coated in ice and snow and sleet. We had about 4 different weather fronts come through. I looked at my phone. I looked at, literally, is this the forecast? Like 4 different, like snow or sleet on different days, coated in ice. The roads were a disaster till Friday. But I knew that was my Avodah that week. So I think the reason this is such a powerful tool is, as women, the tugging. I didn't make it to shul. My child needs me and I'm sitting on the floor instead of davening. My spouse needs a little extra time and support instead of me getting whatever I thought I needed to do. Societal expectations, all the ways, the different definitions of who we are, the different hats we wear. This concept allows us to inhale, exhale, and it takes work. It's not an easy one. But here's how we use this tool to get through a busy week like this one. Right? Energy I use. Being present and focusing on making a beautiful Yom Tov to the best of my ability. All of those are essential, and it all is Kedusha. I remember years ago, a shlucha once read a poem she wrote. I wish I would have like saved it. And it was comparing a woman's day-to-day life and role with the role of the Kayin in the Beis Mikdash. Like, wasn't always glorious. Animals, blood, cleaning, there was stuff. The oil, it sounded a lot like our work day. There was a lot of details, and it's all Kedusha. So I think that this concept, we need to like let it sink in. If there's like a takeaway from today, it's where I'm at physically, emotionally, in the stage of life where my children are. This is exactly where I am meant to elevate and bring Kedusha into the world. And I shared
a question.
Go for it. Who's speaking? I can't see you.
It's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Sorry, it's a little hard to see everybody. Go ahead.
Sorry. So when do you know when it's the right time to say that this is what's meant to be, that I'm not meant to do this shear right now because there's no electricity? And when do you say like, okay, I think Hashem wants me to like try even harder to accomplish this, whatever it is?
Okay, that's a really good question. The way I first of all, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you, so I just want to make that disclaimer. But the way I guess the metrics I use to make these decisions is how much what's the cause and effect of me doing this? Is it that I need a little more grit and determination and focus? What will be the effect of this? Will it bring more simcha to my life? Will it bring more joy to the rest of my family? If what I'm doing in the name of holiness and Kedusha is torturing my family, it's a problem. Now, I'm not talking about my kids. Look, my kids would wish I don't teach any classes at night because they'd rather me just sit around, not because they need me, just be present. So if they do want to ask me something, I'm not busy for an hour. Meanwhile, they could ignore me for 3 hours, right? So I'm not talking about that where like, okay, there's the normal like grumble of like whatever, but I think often if there's so many obstacles coming our way, and I gave this analogy, I think, I'm not sure if it was this class, but I'll say it very briefly. When we were going to buy this house, we lived in a 1,200 square foot home rental right near Chabad for 13 years. After 13 years, I said, my husband Ad Khan Hagafa 13. This is crazy. The big boys came home. There was no room for their suitcases couldn't fit in their rooms, and their clothing couldn't fit in the closet because it was not made a closet for like adult clothing. And the bunk bed when my son set up, it was 817, and then the bunk bed like it wasn't normal. Another kid when the older boys came home was on the floor. It was not and that space was used here, Hebrew school, and my kids homeschooling. It wasn't, I mean, whatever, define normal, but it wasn't ideal. And I remember when we came to finding this house, we like looked at 10 houses, and we right away saw this one. We said, oh, this is the house. It just had everything kind of we were looking for and we were hoping for. It like had my wants list and my dream list. It was perfect. Anyway, make a very long story short, we had stories. I could just tell this story and discuss the layers of Hashgacha Pratis of Hashem, up and down with the mortgage, with the parsonage, with the, and one guy said I could do it, and then he couldn't, and another one said he could, and he couldn't. It was, and we were about to leave to Chicago to drive to my son's graduation. And so the kids want to know, call updates from camp. Are we buy the house? Are we not? Are we moving? Are we not moving? And my Yassi and I really, this was like our mantra. And we kept saying it to the kids. If the beams of this home, if the tiles in these bathrooms, if the planks on these floors are meant to be elevated b'kedusha by us, if they're tied to our family story, we will end up in this home. And if not, it's not ours. And I know that's a material thing, but I'll circle back to your question in a sense. And crazy Hashgacha Pratis, we get to Chicago, we still the third mortgage thing. It was like I can't even tell you. I could just tell the story. We could peel apart the layers. It was so clear that Hashem was like guiding us and holding our hand. We were supposed to stay one place. They had a flood. We ended up in another place, some random person's house. I was so uncomfortable. I didn't know the person. And then one casual conversation, the husband says, the father, the home says, so how do you handle finances on campus? It's complicated. He said, yeah, it is. So my husband's actually right now in the middle of this complicated situation. It's like the third broker, the home. Guy says, I do this all the time. This is what I do for a living. And he ended up getting us the mortgage. It was like so like Hashem, we let go. We said, Hashem, this is yours. We are. I actually remember before we got into the road trip, we were about to leave. We were supposed to close. I remember we both wrote a poem. We said, okay, Rebbe, like whatever's meant to be. And all along, every step of the journey was like Hashem saying, this is yours. Keep going. You need to work a little harder, but it's yours. And I think if we sometimes pay attention to where we're at, should I give this share or should I what? Nurture this child? Okay, fine. You're not talking about abandonment and neglect. Giving this share is 1 hour. Or, okay, so actually we all know, anyone who gives a share knows it's not an hour. It's an hour of showing up and smiling. There's a lot more that goes into it, right? But how much of a toll is it in my existing home, my existing family, my existing achrayusin, responsibilities? So I knew last week, my gut instinct was like, reach out, make hot meals for the students, this, that. And then I was like, no. What's more important right now? My family's sanity, calm, no anxiety, staying positive. That was like number one. And as soon as and also the roads were here, ice until Friday, till late Thursday afternoon, early Friday morning, they were still full of ice. I was like, I can't even invite students out. I think the juggle as women and the guilt. Can we start talking about the guilt as the mommy guilt and the wife guilt and the female guilt? Like we do it and we do it well, right? We're always going to feel like we're not enough in some area, but we have to go back to what we talked about in the beginning. We're not meant to be perfect. Remember I said perfecting the world happens by imperfect beings. That's such a big concept. Hashem wants imperfect beings to perfect the world. So at any given moment, I will also say massive shout out for the concept of a mashpia. The Rebbe, it was like a big bakasha nafshis. The Rebbe begged us, have a mentor you turn to. When I feel really, really torn, and I'm not sure, I call my mashpia. My mashpia always has clarity. I think a mashpia, we cannot underestimate that. And then discuss it with your spouse. Like, What are your thoughts on this? What's the toll? Because I think things are always going to be easy for us to do it. Okay, anyone who thinks that knows it's not true. It's always going to require grit and determination. Remember, they said the physical energy we're exerting to do this. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't. And that doesn't mean we should ignore the toll it takes. And I think we have to learn that sometimes the hard way, where we push ourselves too hard. I'm for sure guilty of this, pushing myself too hard, and then learning the hard way, whoa, that was too much, right? And then hopefully as we evolve and mature, we start learning boundaries, when to say no and when to say yes. And I think it's a constant journey and at times a struggle. So I would say in all areas that definitely assessing and analyzing, am I the only one who could do this job? Can I delegate this job? Some things we can't delegate. You can't delegate someone else to carry your baby, right? You can't delegate someone else to nurture and nourish your children. Well, nourish you could. You can go to the restaurant and pick up food, but not every night. That's not nourishment. But you understand what I'm saying. So, Chaisar, I hope that gives a little bit of clarity. But I also think that we have to recognize that stages don't last forever, right? You think, oh, I have a baby, I'm never going to be able to do this again. Everything comes and goes. Stages come, stages go. Hashem tells us where he wants us. I remember, on a personal level, I had some younger shluchai saying to me, like, Tanya, like, you teach and you're going to Shabbatons and you're like, and you're Chabad house. Like, how do you, I'm like, my darling, you have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a baby. My youngest are whatever, 10 or 9. Like, Hashem put me at this stage. So this is the stage I'm at. And I'm going to embrace the stage I'm at. I'm not going to do, host a pity party for the stage I'm at. I'm going to say, okay, Hashem, this is where you put me. This is where you want me. And I find very often, even the extra responsibilities that sometimes come my way, whether it's, students that we meet or people that come our way, I find that those Hashem sent my way for a reason. And I just have to let go and allow Hashem to guide me. And also try to evaluate what's Iker and what's Tafel. Iker is essential, is a beautiful Yom Tif of Simcha. Tafel, superfluous. I don't know if every kid has to match in perm costumes. Like, you could do it, b'chavod, if it gives you hana and you love to do it. You're using your energy in that way, creativity in that way. Enjoy it. For me, it would cause me stress. I let my kids, whatever you want to wear, it's perm, it's their perm, not my perm, have fun. As long as there's simcha, I don't care. So I think we have to pick and choose what's Iker, what's Tafel. And if we're not sure, we're conflicted, that's where Mashpia really comes in. I cannot stress it enough. An objective opinion. The Rebbe did. The Rebbe gave very clear. Do it. So, Chaisar, I hope that's a little bit of clarity. It's not simple because we'll never feel like we're enough. That's the bottom line. No matter what we do, there's always more. And you know why? Because we're created in the image of the Eibishter. And the Eibishter is Machadish B'tuva B'chayim Tamim Masav Reishis. The Eibishter is constantly creating. We have within us, right? We have within us a part of Hashem. Hashem doesn't stop or creating. We're meant to continue to do and create and be, right? And grow. But we have to remember that there's still that finite physical person who needs kayach, who needs sleep, who needs calm, who needs nourishment emotionally, physically, spiritually. We have to remember all those layers too.
Thank you.
Who's omnipotent? We're not omnipotent, but we have a part of Hashem in us. Hashem is infinite. We have a part of infinity in us that we want to always do and strive and accomplish. By the way, one of the signs we're not healthy is when we can't do, when we're so bogged down that we can't, whether it's physically or psychologically. We're frozen. Okay, too soon. Frozen is too soon. I don't want to go there. I don't want to trigger anyone. So I think these are things that we could remember, and they're really practical, which is part of what my thoughts are, is always to kind of keep things in a very, very practical way. So, but moving forward, the last kind of concepts that we're going to discuss is we understand the kayach of doing. We understand that every single space we're in physically, materially, logistically, emotionally, even the space in our, spectrum of life, or where we're holding that time period in our lives, that's where we're meant to elevate the world. And which is why there's such an emphasis. Why do you think with such an emphasis, the Rebbe's Mitzvah, we're all about action. Just do the mitzvah. Get a yid, put on tefillin. Get a yid, light a Shabbos candle. Last Shabbos, I had students this Shabbos to go, whatever. And so some of the group of fraternity brothers, hey, can we take a bottle of wine? I said, only if you, yes, I'm going to give you a bottle of wine. They're all over 21. I legally made sure because we will not do that. I'm not going to give an 18-year-old a bottle of wine. There's 2 apartments, 8 students, Jews, all living right near each other. I said, sure, but on one condition. Here's I give you a becher, and I gave you the Kiddush guide. This is not to drink. This is not for Friday night drinking. This is to elevate Shabbos with Kiddush. So who's making Kiddush? I said, which one of you are making Kiddush? One boy said, I will. And the other one said, I'll send you a picture to show you. No picture. Sanctity, Shabbos, put your phone away. And the other student says, like, what's wrong with you? Of course she doesn't want a video of us making Kiddush on Shabbos, right? But the point is that we're so I tell my students straight up, we have an agenda. Chabad has an agenda. We want you to leave here 4 years later a stronger, healthier Jew. You want to know what our agenda is? That's my agenda. I want you to do more mitzvahs. That's why we push mitzvahs. Every mitzvah you do, it's nourishing you. It's connecting you to who you are and what your purpose is. I remember once I had a student call me, stressed out. He doesn't know what to do. His mind is not in the right place. He can't get himself to do what he needs to do. I have children cooking. Hold on. No, everything's safe. There's just a very sensitive smoke alarm and someone's grilling. Hold on 1 minute. It's a sign that dinner is done. I forgot to mention that this beautiful home comes with very sensitive fire alarms. So, okay, it's all safe. Kitchen is good. What I want to tell you is get this phone call from the student. He's stressed, he's anxious, he can't do what he needs to do. His emotions are a mess. The way he's thinking is a mess. Guys, it's fine, right? Yeah, the vent always needs to go on before you grill. Okay, it's all good. I have 3 very capable 11-year-olds who are grilling themselves some stuff. If you don't like supper, you make your own in our house. That's how it works. It's all good. Anyway, moving on to one more very important kind of layer to this. The student, back to the story, the student calls me, his intellect, his emotions, his feelings, he can't do it. I said, Scott, when's the last time you put on tefillin? Manya, I can't get myself to put on tefillin. I just can't. My brain, my emotions, I can't study. I said, Scott, do you know the function of tefillin is to create an alignment between your intellect, your emotions, and your actions? I said, Scott, now's exactly when you need to put on tefillin. Literally. And he's like, oh, I never thought of it that way. I'm like, no, come by and put on tefillin. Point is that action is the bottom line. But as we move forward, where does emotion fall in? Because to just be action oriented without acknowledging emotions, think of when we do things by rote without emotions, it's a problem. It's a problem. There's something missing. Think of someone doing a favor for you, emotionless. It's yuck. Or think of when you do something out of obligation that your emotions are not there. Also not pleasant. Now, again, it doesn't mean we wait till our emotions catch up to make supper for the family or do bikur cholim or do what we need to do, right? But at the end of the day, yes, actions are the bottom line, but emotions play a huge, huge part. So while this is not, emotions such as a willingness, graciousness, Enthusiasm. Think of the last time someone did something for you with those emotions behind what they did. Think of doing something out of obligation or with the emotional kind of alignment. At the end of the day, it's missing something without emotions. And that's where the Alter Rebbe will go. And the Alter Rebbe even quotes.
Manya, you muted yourself.
Okay, sorry about that. The Alter Rebbe quotes, when did I mute? Just right there? Okay. The Alter Rebbe quotes a very strong statement from Shnei Lachas Bris that basically says when you do an action without emotions, do a mitzvah without emotions, it's like a soulless body. That's a very strong statement. So on the one hand, yeah, if you don't feel it, you should do it anyway. On the other hand, we want to get ourselves to a place where we can feel. Again, think of doing it with resentment, which is a very toxic emotion, or something more neutral. I'm obligated, so I'll do it, versus I'm excited to do this. And by the way, that goes back to, I guess, Chaya Sarah's question. When it comes to things that are maybe extra, I ask myself, A, can I actually make a difference here? B, not in like, oh, am I good enough? Could someone else do this? Or can I actually make a difference here? B, like, what's the toll it takes? So I try to go through a process so that then when I'm doing it, it's not with resentment. Sometimes I speak to some shluchais who are struggling and they're resentful. And I always say, you cannot do your shluchas with resentment. You cannot parent with resentment. You can't be in your marriage with resentment. Because it's toxic emotions that don't help us maximize our potential and be fully present. Now, obviously, when it comes to emotions, there's different levels of emotions. There's lower level of intent and higher level of intent. And the Alter Rebbe kind of will unpack both of those, which I think this is a good stopping point because we're going to get to a whole new category of higher level of intent and emotions and lower level of intent and emotions. And I think this will be like next week because the Alter Rebbe will discuss also the place of ahava and yira. All for the Eibishter or love for the Eibishter. And I think that this is like the perfect juncture, like stopping point, and that we'll get to next week more of it. Because it's like a whole new segment, so I don't want to like start there. And that will be our last class next week. So if anyone here wants to jump in, because I know this is a really, well, these are such fundamental ideas that are like almost, it can seem basic. Like, of course, all the Kedusha in the world is like, of course, everything physical could be elevated. And of course, my energy could, to really wrap my brain around that every moment, what I'm doing now for Yom Tif or what I'm doing for Purim, I'm literally, one with Hashem, I'm literally bringing Kedusha into the world. I'm revealing the potential of the Eibishter in this world is big. And I think when we know that, we can embrace where we're at. So any thoughts, any questions? I mean, I loved Chaya Sarah's question, but if anyone else wants to jump in before we wrap for the night, I'm happy to discuss it more. Anyone else? Maybe leading up to this week where there's a lot pulling us in many directions. And it can feel very, sometimes almost unholy and trivial or, I don't know, very, very mundane sometimes. Our day-to-day grind can feel very mundane and not holy. The Alter was giving us this perspective. No, Kedusha. Any thoughts? Any questions or well, if there are none, what I will do is I will wish everyone, oh, go ahead. Did you want to say something? I saw someone just went to unmute. Yeah? No? Okay. So ladies, obviously you can always follow up with me on WhatsApp with any questions because if sometimes something's not clear, we can carry it into the next class. I wish you all a very, very freilich and purim. We say freilich because it's the whole theme, but I think as women, we need to figure out how to arrive at Yom Tif really feeling freilich and not like a shmata and not exhausted and not drained. So think of one thing aside from hopefully this class that nourishes you this week that you can do to nourish yourself so that Yom Tov is freilich for you also, right? Like we also have an neshama. We also need to show up at Yom Tov freilich. I always say, you know, before Rosh Hashanah, I always make sure before the big Yom Nurim to teach a class on the Yom Nurim, what Rosh Hashanah class. And once Shlucha said, "You're crazy." Then after Rosh Hashanah, like, how are you teaching a class? Like how? And I said, it's that 1 hour that makes sure I don't just show up at Yom Tov a kugel maker. It's okay to make kugel. Kugel is good. Kugel nourishes neshamas. There are kugels that bring Jews to Chabad houses, right? But I can't forget that I also have a neshama. I also have to nurture and nourish it. So l'chaim, ladies, to showing up at Purim with simcha, freilich, and whatever we can do. You know, I think when it's a mitzvah to be freilich, and that's the whole thing. It's somehow the Yetzer Hara knows how to creep in and stir the pot, you know, and add extra layers of not freilichness. I'll just go with that. I don't think that's a term, but we coined it today. So l'chaim to having a beautiful Yom Tif. And listen, I will definitely be willing to celebrate in Yerushalayim. So we should, I'm totally, they have a 3-day Yom Tif. I'm down for 3 days of Purim in Yerushalayim. What do you think, ladies? L'chaim.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manya.
Thank you, Manya. Thank you so
ladies,
much.
for carving out the time. I mean, it's really, this is not an easy week to do so. So it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
night.
you.